Hi there. Welcome to Connect. We're so glad you could join us. My name is Claire and I'll be the host for tonight. So, tonight we're going to talk about money, investment options, particularly in Kenya, and also going to explore some of the terminologies that are used when it comes to investments. And we're also going to talk about how you can access information about how to invest. So, as always, thank you so much for showing your love and support for the Connect. We'd like you to have questions. If you have any questions, please add them to the comment section. We'll try and answer your questions through the course of the show. And if there's any more time, we'll answer them at the end of the show. So, I'd like to introduce our guest tonight. Her name is Susan Wanjiku, and she's a founder of the Legacy Hub KE. You can know more about Susan. So, Susan, welcome to the Connect Show. Tell us a bit more about
Thank
yourself.
you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very glad to be here. I'm very excited for this conversation. As you guys have heard, Susan Wanjiko. I'm a personal finance coach and a certified life coach. I'm also the founder of the Legacy Hub Kenya, which is like your one-stop platform for coaching on all things personal finance, business coaching. And I'm very glad to be here. This is what I do on a full-time basis, coaching on investments and personal finance. My background in education is I'm a trained economist and a financial analyst and portfolio manager by profession. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, thanks. So, let me give you a bit about a background. When it comes to the topic of money, I do understand it can be so, what's the word? Like you have a lot of anxiety around that topic. So basically, in this current climate where the cost of living is always going up, what would you tell someone who's starting to save or to try and get their better habits around money?
Right. So you've mentioned cost of living. I think that is something that everyone in the world is experiencing, regardless of where you are right now. Yeah. So cost of living ideally is just, inflation, and everyone is talking about it. And we do know how that affects our spending, because of course you go to the mall or the supermarket and you realize something you used to get for an X amount of money is slightly higher now. So that's how the cost of living is affecting us in terms of spending. But for saving, it's also a very hidden effect, but it is there, right? So inflation ideally over time erodes the purchasing power of your money, because what an X amount would do for you 2 years ago is not what it will do for you 2 years from now because of inflation, right? So as someone who's starting like their savings journey or their personal finance journey, regardless of where you are, it's so important to have inflation in mind. And the best rule of thumb, or the thing that I also use, like the concept I use when I'm saving, and I think everyone should apply it, is when you're putting money aside, especially for something that is not short term, it's something that you're looking to do in the medium term or long term, you need to have inflation in mind. And so the best kind of savings avenue are definitely a savings account that is actually earning you a higher interest than the inflation rate, right? So if, for instance, I'm talking about here in Kenya, the inflation rate is around 8%, 9%. So something that would be considered a good long-term savings or investment would definitely be something that gives me a return higher than 8%, which is, give or take what the inflation rate is. So yeah, cost of living is important. It helps me to have in mind, how that is impacting my savings, right? So yeah, definitely.
Thanks for that. So, you've mentioned about the cost of living and the inflation rate, but let's get back to the basics. How do you even start a good saving habit? I've heard about this word budgeting. Does it mean that when you budget, stop doing the things that you enjoy or you love? Yeah.
Oh wow. You know what? I've had that so many times. Before I really understood budgeting. Budgeting for me was also, it felt very restrictive, right? It's almost like when someone is telling me to budget, I'm almost like this person already does not want me to enjoy my money, because the mindset here is budgeting is restrictive. It's gonna mean I don't enjoy my money. But once you unlearn that and you understand budgeting as a tool, what is budgeting really? Budgeting is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. I'm pretty sure even for the guys watching us, you can let us know in the comment box how many times have has a month come and gone and you're almost like, where did my money go? Like I paid my bills, etc. But it's almost like I can't quite really account. So budgeting is really just accounting, holding yourself accountable and being able to know. So how much went to entertainment? How much did I send back home? How much went to food? It's just about auditing and knowing exactly where your hard earned coins are going, right? So when I understood budgeting, in fact, it became the opposite. Budgeting isn't restrictive, it doesn't mean you can't enjoy your life, but budgeting is the exact same thing that will get you that soft life. I mean, right? Because you're able to plan your finances around the most important things like bills, etc, but then you're also able to save and invest for your future, and you're the greatest beneficiary when that happens. You get to, travel if you want to, afford healthcare, retire early, be able to even leave a toxic employer because you have savings and financial security. So if you ask me, budgeting is like the ultimate form of self-care. Yeah, so it's not restrictive at all.
Yeah, I love the word soft life and I love the word.
Me too.
Yeah, who doesn't? So that's great. But why is it important to have discipline and consistency? And is it really
Yeah,
important? Yeah, during
right.
saving.
Budgeting. Okay. Why discipline and consistency is important is because I think for me the most important bit is that budgeting and planning for our money doesn't come naturally, yet it is one of the most important life skill. I mean, I'm still bewildered, and I wonder how this stuff wasn't taught to us in school. Like when we were learning trigonometry, etc. Like no one ever taught me how to budget. Yet for my entire adult life, I need to know how to budget. No one taught me how to save, invest, but like yet for my entire adult life, and I mean, since I get a job and time immemorial, I still have to like learn how to, or rather know how to save, where to invest. So for me, I feel like because that wasn't taught to us in school, and it's not like a second nature to us, like now how we were told, brush your teeth when you leave your house or etc. It's not natural for most of us. So learning how to become disciplined and consistent in that area is so important, because I'm yet to find there are very few things in life that don't require finances, and so that's one of the most abandoned aspect of life skills, and just managing. It's almost like, oh, I'm not a finance person, or I'm not so good with this thing, so we almost don't even think about it that much. But why it's so important to be disciplined with your money management, to know where your coins are going, to be able to tell what is what. I think it's because it's a life skill. Generally everyone should be able to do that for themselves, because there are very few things in life that don't require finances, and that's the one area that we are very wishy-washy about. So we make the money, but what you do with your hard earned money is the most important bit. So that's why for me discipline and consistency with budgeting and money management is important, because I mean, you work so hard, you put in the hours. What will that money do for you at the end of the day? It's really about what you do with your money, not even just how much you're earning, right? So that's why for me discipline and consistency is so important, because money cuts across everything in life. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. You know what? You're right. I wish we were taught about money so many times. First of all, I
Yeah,
wish we were taught about money as early as high school, before you
I
get your
know.
first check, after you finish college. But we never had these platforms. I don't think this information was even out there as much. Now, let me take you a
Wow.
bit back to probably a bit of my story. So I was an international student, and here it means you work part time. but you get a bit of money through your college. No one taught me how to manage my finances. So I finished uni, started working full time, and I thought that more money is equals to more spending and a better lifestyle. So I heard about this word called emergency fund. And I actually thought emergency fund doesn't relate to me because it's for rich people. So tell us, what's an emergency fund and how can you even create one?
Right. I like to call emergency funds like my life insurance policy. I don't really mean insurance like insuring my life, but I it's like my safety net. Let me even just use the word safety net, right? Look at what COVID taught us. COVID taught us that will sleep one day and the next we wake up and there's a global pandemic. Like whoever imagined that? And companies are shutting down, people are being laid off. You have to stay home for a year plus. Whoever thought that would happen, right? And for me, an emergency fund is that safety net, such that because life is unpredictable, okay, because people go to work one day and come back home jobless, because businesses take a hit during certain seasons, because family members fall sick and the breadwinner in the household is now incapacitated. You want to have an emergency fund because there's no telling the day, the time, or the hour that you'll need it, right? So an emergency fund is the first and the most important thing you should do in your savings journey or your investments journey, or the first day you get your paycheck. And if you didn't do that, then you need to do it from today, because it's ideally a savings account that has at least 6 months worth of living expenses. Okay. So why are we saving 6 months worth of living expenses? We are saving 6 months worth because we are thinking, if today I lost my job or my ability to make an income, either because of an illness or whatever, right? Who would take care of my bills? So who would take care of the obligations of the financial obligations that I cater to in my family, right? So it's like it's just a smart way of being a human being, because we know life is unpredictable. So I need to plan in advance to know, okay, if I lose my job, or if I lose my ability to make an income, or if my job, or rather my business is struggling, I have an amount of money that can last me at least 6 to 12 months, as I'm just getting back on my feet and trying to figure out what's my next move after job loss or an illness or just a family emergency, right? So the unfortunate bit is that according to statistics, most families are one emergency away from a financial crisis. And I know if people were to tell their stories, they would actually tell us they've either seen it in a close family member or a close friend where one thing happened and it almost bankrupted that person or the family. So emergency funds are your first stop. If you're here and you're like, I need to get my money in order, that's where you start. You need to start stashing money to ensure that if anything was ever to happen to your sources, your current sources of income, you'd have a fallback plan or at least some cushion for a couple of months. And most financial planners recommend 6 to 12 months.
Ooh, 6 to 12 months.
Yeah,
Well, it is doable though. One thing
very.
though that I came across when I was going through your videos is you
Yeah.
mentioned something called a sinking fund. And there's also
Yeah.
investing, but I'm just a bit. I guess the question is, when it comes to investing, do you use your emergency fund? Do you use your salary? Do you use your savings? What do you use?
Mm, that's a really good question. This is why we are budgeting, okay? Because I like to tell people, think of your salary or your paycheck as a lump sum that needs to go into different baskets, okay? And there are five very important baskets we all need to have in mind. The most obvious is your bills, because and most of us are stuck there paycheck to paycheck, like you earn your money and all your money can do for you is pay bills, right? And one of the reasons financial planners recommend that we live below our means. So if I earn $1,000 or however much, I need to spend, like, my total bills and expenses need to be way below that, because because this paycheck here, this big lump sum, needs to enter five different baskets, right? So, basket number one is your bills, what we call the needs. And then, basket number two, we want to cater to wants. Of course, we are not trying to tell you don't enjoy your money. Remember, we already said budgeting doesn't mean I don't enjoy my money, but budgeting means I'm intentionally spending, right? So, if I want to take a trip, it's part of, my wants. If I like to go out on Fridays, that can still fall in your budget, right? And then the third basket is debt freedom. We have mortgages, we have credit card debt, we have maybe student loans. Like there's so many things we need to pay in terms of debt. It's almost becoming impossible to live life without a certain form of debt, right? So this same paycheck needs to cater to your needs, your wants, and then debt. Then the other two baskets are your savings and investments. So a bit, what is saving? And this is really huge, right? So what's the difference between saving and investing?
Mm.
Saving is just putting money aside for future use. So whether that's school, medical insurance, car insurance, whatever it is, like any short term to medium term things that you need to save up for. So it's ideally I'm saving to spend. So it's capital preservation. But then we know that because we don't just want to merely survive, we want to thrive, right? We want to be
Yes.
wealthy. We want to get to financial freedom. We want to one day be able to slow down, travel the world. Like we all have big dreams for ourselves in the future, and that requires wealth. So, why is this fifth basket important? It's important because you cannot save your way to financial freedom or to wealth. You have to invest. So, what is exactly is investing? Now, it's putting your money where it's growing, not just being preserved, but where it's been preserved, but it's earning an interest and it's growing, right? So, where do you invest from? From that paycheck. So that's why budgeting, my dear, is so important because that one paycheck you should budget so that it tries to fit all these five. Not everyone starts there. I'm very aware of that. As a finance coach, that's a struggle I know a lot of people struggle with. Like sometimes you don't have enough to do all those things. However, you can start somewhere. So ensure that first of all you have a working budget, you catering to your needs and wants, and then you can go step by step. Start sufficiently servicing your debt. Don't miss your payments. Then with time, when that becomes better, you've already started seeing how you can reduce wastage, maybe make more money. Then now you can keep, growing into saving. After you've saved a while and you're comfortable, maybe you've started earning more, then you can start investing. So we are not just bombarding you with this, oh, all these things should be done. Identify your starting point and then work your way towards your income, catering to all these five baskets. I don't know whether that answers your
That makes
question.
perfect sense. Actually, when you're talking about that,
Yeah.
there's a video I've seen on, I think, YouTube that covers how to invest or budget with 50,000 or something. I wish I watched that video, guys. I wish I watched it when I was in uni. Because, yeah, that's a really good example. So you've basically said that how you can grow your money invest is from your salary, but that comes from budgeting and allocating your salary towards different slots. Right.
Sure.
So we're going to get into the next topic, which is growing your money. So when it comes to this topic, diasporas are actually, most of us, let me speak, are afraid of actually investing at home by buying land and real estate. So we're gonna go for a quick break, but when we come back, I'd like Susan to tell us what other smart investment options are available at home. So see you after the break.
Like my biggest limiting belief was self-doubt. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Amani, you don't look like you're someone that doubt yourself. But self-doubt is agony. Like you're constantly in fear. You're constantly, you are your worst critic, and until like you get to the core problem of why you are your worst critic, why you're always negative talking yourself, where those emotions are coming from, you're always going to stay stagnant.
So welcome back to the Connect show. We have Susan, who's our guest for tonight, and you're talking about money. So Susan has covered about how to start saving, the importance of budgeting, consistency and discipline when doing that. She's also covered what an emergency fund is, which is fantastic, and which part of your money is used towards investing, which she said is your salary, not your emergency fund. So now we talk about growing money. And most diasporas, as mentioned before, are actually afraid of buying land or just investing into real estate at home, for the obvious reasons. So, what are some of the smart investment tools that we have available at home in Kenya?
Mm, mm. Other than just buying land, of course.
Yeah,
Okay. So there are a bunch of investment options back home in Kenya. And one of the things that is currently happening in Kenya, there's now so much automation. I can barely think of something that you would need to have to come back home to actually gain access to, because now from wherever you are, you can access financial markets in Kenya, be able to set up an account, send your money, receive your interest, etc. However, maybe before I mention investment opportunities, I think we need to talk about maybe like what should my mindset be, and when I'm choosing investments, then I can just mention them, right? The most
yeah,
important bit, right, is to ask myself, how much money do I have at my disposal? Okay, once you've done the five baskets, you've done your bills, your wants, your debt, your savings, and now you're like, okay, I still have some extra x amount of money. That's where it starts, because as you're choosing investments, you will know, what's the limit, right, and what you're working with. The second thing is to ask yourself, what are my goals? What am I trying to achieve? So someone would tell me, coach, I would want to retire early. I don't want to stay here forever. I want to come back home. And by the time I'm coming home, I want to have set myself up financially. That's a goal. Someone else would be like, I need to raise money for education for my children. That's a different goal. Someone else would be like, I'm really big on passive income. I need to hop off this hamster wheel of working 18 hours a day. So I need to start building passive income. Now, why are goals important? Because not every investment option in the market will work for you or will work for me. The best kind of investing is what we call goal based investing. So if I want early retirement, then you see, when I'm searching, or when I'm looking, or when I'm talking to a financial advisor or a coach, then they would be able to understand what it is that I'm looking for and recommend for me options that would ideally help me to retire early, if this is what I'm looking for. If the goal is to create passive income, or if the goal is to accumulate, maybe even money when you come back home, you'd like to have money stacked away somewhere to start your life, build, etc., then that's how you choose. So you choose investments based off of your goals, the timelines you're working with, and then once you've done that, now it's very easy to come down and identify, so what are the available options in the market, and then now compare how they work, what they will achieve for you, and then now you can pick depending on what goal you're trying to achieve, right? But to answer your question, money market funds are amazing for someone who is very low risk. There are people who are risk averse, right? They're just like, I'm not trying to lose my money, okay? So money market funds are amazing because you're able to kind of like kill two birds with one stone. You're able to save on one hand because you get capital preservation on your money. You're not so worried about losing it. But then on the other hand, you're able to invest because your savings are earning you an interest. Um, and they compensate you for inflation most times, right? So most of them will give you 9% per annum, 10% per annum, while the inflation rate is 8. This is at an all-time high, but before inflation has been lower, 6%, 7%. So you're able to actually be compensated for inflation. So if you're looking for somewhere to store money and you don't want the headache of, oh my God, will I lose it? Will the market perform badly? By law, all money market funds in Kenya are actually required to preserve your capital, right? So that's a very good opportunity to start with. Someone who's just starting out, right? Then from there now, depending on your risk appetite, you can proceed to more long-term things like bonds or riskier. If you're a more risk person, risk pro person, you can look at stock market, but the opportunities are endless, really. There's so much you can invest in Kenya.